I thought he was my rock during my mom's final days. Then he slept with someone else. The doctor's words hung in the air like a thick fog stage Roman IV aggressive. Mom held my hand, her grip surprisingly strong, but her eyes, they held a fear I'd never seen before. Mark squeezed my other hand, a silent promise of support. "We'll fight this, Carol," he said, his voice thick with emotion. He looked at me, a reassuring nod. He was my rock. I needed him to be. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of appointments, scans, and consultations. I became fluent in medical jargon I never wanted to know. Mark was there for every single one, holding my hand, asking questions, and driving us home afterward. He'd rub my back as I tried to sleep, whispering words of comfort that barely penetrated the fog of anxiety that consumed me. Mom started chemo. The side effects were brutal. Nausea, exhaustion, and hair loss ravaged her body. I spent every spare moment at her house, helping her with meals, administering medications, and trying to keep her spirits up. David, my brother, helped when he could, but he had a wife and 2 young kids to care for. I was single, Mark was supportive. It felt like my duty. Mark initially stepped up. He brought over groceries, did laundry, and even tried to cook a few meals with questionable success. But as Mom's condition worsened, his presence dwindled. "Work's been crazy," he'd say, his eyes averted. "Big project, long hours. You understand, right?" I tried to understand, but the truth was I felt abandoned. My life had shrunk to the 4 walls of Mom's house and the sterile corridors of the hospital. I was exhausted, emotionally and physically drained, and desperately craving a moment of normalcy, a hug that didn't feel like a pity gesture. One evening, after a particularly rough day with Mom, I came home to an empty apartment. Mark wasn't there. He hadn't texted. I called him, but it went straight to voicemail. I left a message, my voice cracking with fatigue and desperation. "Please call me when you get a chance. I need you." He finally called back around 11 p.m. "Sorry, babe," he said, his voice sounding distant. "Got stuck at the office. Big deadline tomorrow. I'm just finishing up. Can you come home?" I pleaded. "I really need you here." "I don't think I can, Sarah. I'm exhausted. I'll just crash here and come home in the morning." I hung up, feeling a familiar wave of disappointment wash over me. He wasn't my rock anymore. He was a stranger, a ghost in my life. Emily noticed the change in me. "You look like you haven't slept in a week," she said, her brow furrowed with concern. "And where's Mark in all this?" "I haven't seen him in ages." I shrugged, trying to downplay my feelings. "He's been busy with work. It's fine." "It's not fine, Sarah," she said, her voice firm. "You're drowning, and he's nowhere to be seen. You deserve better than that." A few days later, I found a receipt crumpled in Mark's jacket pocket, an expensive Italian restaurant for 2 people. He told me he'd had a sandwich at his desk. "Who were you with, Mark?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. He stammered, his face flushed. "It was a business dinner, with a client." "A client? At that romantic place? Come on, Mark. I'm not stupid." He insisted it was innocent, just a work thing. But the seed of doubt had been planted. I started paying closer attention to his phone, his behavior. He became more secretive, more defensive. The last few weeks of Mom's life were a blur of pain and morphine. I barely left her side. Nurse Thompson, the hospice nurse, was a godsend. She was kind, compassionate, and incredibly skilled. She helped me navigate the complexities of end-of-life care, offering a shoulder to cry on when I needed it most. Mark visited Mom a few times, but he always seemed uncomfortable, like he didn't know what to say or do. His presence felt forced, almost obligatory. I didn't need forced, I needed real. Mom passed away peacefully in her sleep with me holding her hand. The grief was a physical ache, a crushing weight on my chest. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of sorrow. The funeral was a blur. I remember seeing faces, hearing voices, but it all felt distant, surreal. Mark was there standing beside me, but I felt utterly alone. The night after the funeral, I couldn't sleep. I was lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the last few months in my head. I felt numb, empty. I reached for Mark's phone, something I never did. I don't know why. Maybe I was looking for answers. Maybe I was just trying to distract myself from the pain. A text message popped up on the screen. From a name I didn't recognize, Jessica. "Last night was amazing. I'm so glad I could be there for you. You deserve to feel good, especially after everything you've been through." My blood ran cold. I clicked on the message, scrolling through the thread. Flirty messages, late-night conversations, and then explicit details about their sexual encounter the night after my mother's funeral. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. The air was sucked out of my lungs. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't find my voice. I woke Mark up. I shoved the phone in his face, my hands shaking with rage. He stammered, his eyes wide with panic. "Sarah, I can explain." "Explain what, Mark?" Explain how you slept with someone else the night after my mother died. Explain how you betrayed me in the worst possible way. He tried to deny it at first, but the evidence was irrefutable. He confessed. He said it was a mistake, a moment of weakness. He said he was stressed, lonely, and that Jessica was just there. Get out, I said, my voice trembling with anger. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. He begged for forgiveness. He promised it would never happen again. He said he loved me, but the words were hollow, meaningless. The trust was gone, shattered into a million pieces. I packed his bags and threw them out the door. I changed the locks. I didn't want to see his face again. The next few weeks were hell. I cried myself to sleep every night. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't function. I felt like my world had imploded. Emily was my lifeline. She stayed with me, cooked for me, and listened to me rant and rave. She didn't judge me, didn't try to fix me. She just let me be. David helped with the practicalities of separating from Mark, dividing our assets, untangling our finances. It was a messy, painful process. I started therapy. It was hard, dredging up all the pain and anger, but it helped me understand my emotions, to process my grief and betrayal. I remembered conversations with Mom. She'd always been a strong, resilient woman. She'd faced challenges with grace and determination. She told me to never let anyone break me, to always stand up for myself. Her words gave me strength. I realized I couldn't let Mark's betrayal define me. I couldn't let grief consume me. I had to move forward to rebuild my life. I started taking care of myself. I started eating healthy, exercising, and getting enough sleep. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. It was therapeutic, a way to express my emotions without words. I joined a support group for people who had lost loved ones. It was there that I met Liam. He was kind, intelligent, and had a gentle sense of humor. He understood my pain because he'd been through it himself. Liam didn't try to fix me. He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just listened, offering a supportive presence when I needed it most. We started spending time together, going for walks, grabbing coffee, visiting museums. It was platonic, but there was a connection there, a spark of something hopeful. I found my own apartment. It was small, but it was mine. I decorated it with paintings, plants, and photos of Mom. It felt like a fresh start. I had to see Mark one last time to finalize the separation agreement. It was awkward, tense. He looked tired, defeated. He apologized again, saying he regretted everything he'd done. He said he still loved me. I didn't say anything. I just signed the papers and walked away. A few months later, I attended a memorial service for Mom. I shared stories about her life, her kindness, her strength. I laughed and cried with friends and family. It was a celebration of her life, a way to honor her memory. One evening, I was painting in my apartment, working on a portrait of Mom. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Liam. He was inviting me to an art gallery opening. I smiled. A genuine smile, the first one I'd felt in a long time. I'll be there, I texted back. I knew the pain of losing Mom and the betrayal of Mark would always be a part of me. But I was no longer defined by it. I was Sarah, a survivor. I was rebuilding my life, one brushstroke at a time. I was finding my own strength, my own happiness. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful.